Hi everyone, Diane here, welcome to my channel. Today I am going to be painting a bird. That's original, they said, and today I'm going to show you how I'm going to paint something which is called a laughing dove. Just spraying my Kuretake paints here to get ready to get them softened up a little bit. A laughing dove is an Egyptian native, lives here, and I just spent an hour watching this amazing bird on our balcony here, preening itself, and then was shortly afterwards joined by, this is the female, joined by the male, and they sat there for probably a good hour, just enjoying the sunshine and sorting out their feathers so that they could fly more efficiently. And the funny thing was, I had a bad morning, you know how you do, but I had decided yesterday that I was going to paint a dove because we see a lot of them around here. And I'd found this photo online, which is obviously slightly enhanced because they're not quite so bright as that, but they are roughly that colour, if you see what I mean. So anyway, I had done a sketch of this bird in my little Canson graduate sketchbook here, where I've got other things and so on going on. But I hadn't got very far with it, and I had put in the background some flowers and things. After having, this is all to do with, you know, how a painting develops. Don't know how it's going to turn out, don't know if it's going to be any good, but it will be fun to do anyway. I realised Tamsin was filming this and taking, we'll show you a bit at the end, I expect, of the film that she took of these birds playing around on the balcony. Realised that there were palm trees in the background. This is the view from our, I know a lot of you have got palm trees, so you're familiar with that, but it's not something we see an awful lot of in France. So I thought, oh, I tell you what, I think I'll draw this again. Obviously, I was going to draw it again anyway, because I couldn't paint it here. Or I could do it in order to test out the colours and so on and so forth. But so I'm going to draw it again on a piece of Meaden hot press. I'm going to use hot press for this. Not sure why. I think I just will because I feel like it. And so there we go. I'm going to do that now. Yeah, let's get started, shall we? And let's try not to be too worried about how it all turns out and everything. We're in week 4 of, or stage 4 of the Build-A-Bird challenge. For anyone who hasn't been following this, this is a challenge for this month. Each week, approximately 6 days each week, and then we have a final week. We've been exploring the different parts of a bird, and now we've got to stage 4, and we're looking at the embellishment. So although this is a real bird, surprisingly enough, it's amazing when you look at the photo how much detail you can get nowadays in a photo of something real, because this is just incredible. This isn't a particularly good print. It's just on a cheap old printer. But you can see she's fluffed up her feathers and they've come standing out like pieces of metal. You would imagine that this was like brass or bronze or, you know, steel or something. And it's just her feathers. And then all of a sudden she'll go, psst, and they're all flat and black down again. And she'll look like that, all smooth and beautiful. It's amazing. Really was very interesting to watch this morning as I was sitting there on the sofa looking out the window and thinking, yeah, I don't think I've ever seen a bird in one place for so long. They must have been there for about an hour. And then I thought to myself, they're probably sitting there on the balcony looking at us through the window and going, do you know what? I've never seen human beings stay in one place for an hour or more. It's really amazing. You're normally rushing around like lunatics. Anyway, so maybe they were thinking the same as me. So let's get started with the sketch. I'm not sure if I'm going to show you the whole thing, but that will depend on the editing. But we'll start. Let's base it on what I already drew, which is this. And but I'm going to transfer it onto here, and I will. I'm just thinking maybe I should have a bigger piece of paper. Maybe I should. I'm not sure. I'm not sure if I've got a larger piece of hot press. Okay, I'm going to switch to cold. I'm going to change my mind. I'm going to go to a bigger piece. I don't know why I didn't bring larger sheets of hot press with me, but I didn't. Look, this is a block of paper, and one of the things which is a slight disadvantage, it's not a big disadvantage, because the blocks are very good because the paper's glued all the way around, so when you make it wet, it doesn't cockle. But if you don't pay attention, you'll end up with a ridge around the outside edge of glue. And then when you start painting, the paint and the water will run up against that edge, and you could end up with some nasty backgrounds and things. So what you have to do, you have to remember to do this every now and again if that happens. It doesn't always happen when you remove your paper, but after a few sheets have been removed, it can happen. Just run a knife along there to get rid of those nasty bits of glue, and then get rid of the nasty bits of glue in a bin. Sorry about the noise of the dogs in the background. They're not my dogs, they're just dogs. Okay, so this is 12 by 9 cold press, and I've decided to go up a sheet size so that I have a little bit more space to play around with. Okay, so let us begin. The original sketch, I had her standing on a branch, but as we notice, she spent a lot of time standing on a piece of wrought iron balcony. So we might, let's see how it works. Let's see, and I'm going to start placing her in the middle, and I'm just going to put in her beak, which is quite fine actually, and then she has a kind of domey sort of head, and her little eye is here somewhere, and she does have a kind of domey sort of head, no doubt about it. So we'll do that, and then we'll give her a nice long neck. She doesn't always have a nice long neck. It depends whether or not she's stretching herself out or not. Okay, and then they have quite substantial breasts, if you'll excuse my saying so. And then I'm going to put one wing out the back here like this, because she was, in one of my photos, you can see, she was stretching her wings out. So we're not going to do it like that, but I am going to put one out there like that. And then her other wing, which comes quite close to the front. You notice these things actually when you're working from a photo. The wing is actually quite close to the front of her breast there. So we'll draw that in like that and take that round and make that kind of the same sort of length. It doesn't matter, it doesn't have to be that exact. And then the boy, he was much more active with his tail actually than she was. She was keeping her tail nice and tidy, whereas he was spreading his out all the time. So I'm going to use his tail as my model for her. And then they all have quite chunky legs, a bit like me. And so we're going to give them nice chunky legs and chunky feet, sort of dinosaur feet really, you would think. So we'll do that. And because the head in proportion is much smaller, so let's then bring it's either a branch, which is much easier at the end of the day, or the fence or the railing or whatever you want to call it. So I'm just going to pop that there like that. And then in the background we had rather nice palm leaves coming in from all directions. So we can draw those in now if we want to, or we can put them in at the end. Just depends whether you want to be bothered with doing that or not. And down here, if this is a branch, you could do it, with twigs coming out and so on and so forth, or you could put in the palm leaves down here as well. So I'm not quite sure, but the main thing is the bird, and because she is the subject of the painting, not the background. We can always add the background later. And I'm just looking at her head and thinking, I know I wanted it to be a bit on the smaller side, but I don't think I wanted it to be quite as small as that. So I think I'm dribbling on the paper. So we'll make that a little bit bigger. Okay. We don't want too many pencil lines showing, so we can sort of rub those out a bit. Now, as far as colour goes, I think that'll do. And we're gonna, this is whimsical, okay, so it's going to be kind of embellished and so on and so forth. And the colour is pink. Actually, I'm going to get the Art Nouveau set as well, because I have a feeling that the colours are much more Art Nouveau-ish. If we look at that next to that, you can see these colours here, can't we? And this, so it's pretty amazing actually. That is perfect for that, and that, and that, and this, and then probably this. So we have those colours there, right? That's good. Okay, excellent. So we'll put that away for a minute. And I've got 3 round brushes here. I've got a size, I think that's about a size 9, 7, and 5, and 3, something like that. Don't know which ones I'm going to use at the moment. And I'm just going to stop for a second. Oh no, it's here. It's okay. Thought I couldn't find my palette, but I have found it. So here we are. Probably use black, gold, and white for the embellishments if I use pen. Okay, so here we go. Let's get started on this. I think I'll start with a light pink in the head. And I think, actually, having started there, I think what I'm going to do, and I'm making it up as I go along, let's just paint the whole bird in this pale pink, okay, which I think is probably a good place to start. I could have used a bigger brush actually, and I'm just thinking at the moment, I remember not very long ago we did a some birds, and we used some gold, and I have got some Kuretake gold, but I'm not sure if it's as strong as this. And we did do some gold dropping in, didn't we? Do you remember? So I'm just going to activate this as well. I'm going to put some water on that. Yeah, whoops, don't fall over. I've got slippery floor here, the tiles, it's all ceramic tile, and it's easy to slip. Right, and don't forget the tail. So this isn't going to be the final colour. It's not the final answer, we're just sloshing that in a bit, and probably the feet, legs as well. Okay, so now we have a pink bird. Now, it's probably true to say that this bird has a certain amount of orange on the top of the wing, so we can do that. And I'm guessing that this wing probably has similar. And then in front, there is some rather lovely blue. So we'll pop that in and let that sort of blend. And then probably I'm going to find the same colours in tail. And it, you know, the thing is, it doesn't have to be real life. It's not meant to be real life. And the beak is also blue. Isn't that nice? She's got kind of blue makeup on. I think that's really rather sweet. And let's put some darker pink in places. And we've got this one as well, which is kind of brighter. Let's put some of that in. I'm going to mix a little bit of orange with the pink and drop it into the legs because they're really quite bright. And just let it all blend in. If you make it too dark, you can always lift out some of the colour, just dry off your brush, make it kind of clean and thirsty. And then you can just lift off some of the colour if you think it's too dark, like that, see? Okay, all right, well, while we're letting that dry, then I think we can probably come into the background, and I'm going to grab a bigger brush, like this one, and probably some, should we be relatively realistic and go for ultramarine blue, because the sky here is quite blue. And we'll just pop in some blue sky behind her. You could use cerulean or cobalt blue. People talk about developing their own style, and I don't know whether people realise, but every time they pick up a paintbrush and they make a decision to choose this or that colour, or to paint the background or not paint the background, or to do wet in wet or not do wet in wet, to embellish or not to embellish, every time you make a decision like that, and you do that every time you paint, no matter how much of a beginner you are or how much of a seasoned painter, good or bad, you are, whether or not you care when you touch something that's wet and it runs, and so on and so forth. All those things are what make your style. It's not a kind of conscious, oh, I'm going to paint like, you know, Van Gogh or whatever. It's just what happens to come out at the end of your paintbrush, really, at the end of the day. Okay, and then, so if we're going to do some, what do you call them? You know, I can just put in some beginnings of some palms, that's the word. It's very difficult painting. It's very difficult getting started, and it's not a joke. And we do talk about it a lot, you know, the blocks, the things that stop us from starting, if you know what I mean. And it's as L.S. Lowry said, painting is damned hard work. And it's true. It's true. It's people say, oh, it's so relaxing, and yes, once it's finished. I don't find it particularly relaxing. I actually find the whole process quite stressful. So don't be ashamed if you do too. You know, I mean, you're right there with me, kind of thing. You don't know whether you're going to like what you do, really. You don't know whether you're wasting your time. Let's mix some blue with this orangey colour and dilute that down, and then that'll be a kind of sludgy grey. And you can call that whatever you want. That's gone a bit kind of haywire, hasn't it? Let's get a piece of paper and do a rescue on that. It's gone a bit too much. So we'll just dab it out. And it's trick number 1. You know, you could put this in your book of hacks to save your painting. I'll just grab a piece of tissue paper and blot it up. Let it dry and then repaint it once it's dry. Okay, that's fine. You might even like it like that, all kind of serrated and so on. So at this point, I probably will need to take a hairdryer because we're, you know, working against the clock here, but you don't need to. You can just go and have a cup of tea if you want. And I'm going to take a hairdryer and just dry it off. Okay, so I'm going to reinforce the colour in the head of the bird by going over it with a bit more pink. We put her eye in a minute, and we'll come down here and we need some grey, I think. Let me see, what should we do next? I think what we probably want to do is to put in some markings. I'm not quite sure what I'm going to say here, because I don't really know quite what I'm doing, if you know what I mean. But this is the problem, you see, when you're actually doing this live, because a lot of people, they do their painting and then they narrate. And I mean, that's not a bad idea. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that, because it's obviously easier in a way because you know what you've done and then you can make sense of it when you come to talk about it afterwards. You can say, yes, and at this point I'm going to do this and so on, and you do it because you know you've done it. You kind of, so, and you don't know whether, you know whether or not it's worked, and if it hasn't worked, then you stopped and you didn't bother to, etc., so to speak. But I prefer to narrate as I go along for whatever reason, and to just kind of go with the flow like that. And sometimes you don't know what's going to happen. So you just keep going, which is my motto, just keep going. And you hope that when it dries, it looks interesting, which it might. This is dry now, so we can come over the top of that with this greenish sage green colour, which is quite nice. And that sage green is this orangey red. Hope you can see that okay. And this blue, which is kind of strange, isn't it? But it is a sort of sage green. See? Quite interesting. I'm going to put some more of that up here on top of our blurry thing. That's quite surprising to me that colour comes out of those two mixed together. So you never know. You don't ever know what you're going to get, because that's a surprise. Look at that. Look at that contrast. And then we put a bit more over here. And let's mix up a bit more and put it down the bottom here. A bit more shadow. I'm going to grab the hairdryer again. Now, I'm hoping that that's going to work. And I have a black here. Let's see. Yeah, so I'm going to put in, that's more or less dry. I'm going to put in an eye, like that. And then I shall go for a very fine 0.1, if I can find it, to do the line around the outside. And then if we want to, if we can make the white work, you can do that. And then with that fine black, I can just outline the birdie. Okay, so we've got her beak. And then we could put some definition on her very dinosaur-like claws. Do dinosaurs have claws? I think so. There's always somebody operating a lawnmower or a strimmer or something outside here. I don't know if you can hear that, but I can. Okie dokie. Right, let's go to the black. And on her neck, I have the picture here. Lots of little dots. Like that. Definitely. And then I'm thinking about gold. I don't know quite why. So let's see if we can activate some of this. I could use a gold pen, but I sort of think, I'm thinking this is, what is this? This is Calero, pearly colours or whatever they call it. I don't know whether this is going to work or not. It's probably not going to show up well enough. I'm having problems seeing, actually. The lighting's not very good. I think I'm going to have to probably, because the light's so bad in here, I might have to stick with a much more contrasty kind of approach and use the black a lot. I think that's probably what I'm going to have to do, and strengthen up the contrasts and things. So maybe we'll go with a bit darker pink on the top of the head there, perhaps. Let's get that gold pen. Yeah, I think gold actually works better than the gold paint. And let's give her some nice black tips. Okay, and then the wing came round like this. This is rather nice, isn't it? This. Let's put some circles on. Let's break into the outside of the real bird kind of world. Paint the world you want. Paint the world you want. And let's come down here, make this darker. Gold again. This is a nice gold pen. This is the metallic from Uniball Signo, and I bought this one actually in a shop locally to me rather than online, and it's much better than any of the others I've ever had. Just sticking in lots of gold. Put some up here too. I think I want to make her beak a little bit darker. So let's pick up a bit of the blue, because oddly enough, the beak does seem to be blue, not yellow. And then going back to this amazing olive green colour, if you hold the brush kind of vertically and just sort of very lightly, try to keep it as light as possible when you're putting in these fine fronds. If you press a little bit harder, you get a kind of broken kind of effect, which is a nice contrast as well. And if you make a little bit more water, mix a little bit more water, then you can get something a little bit more broad, you know, like that. And let's build it up a little bit with some twigs and things coming out here and there. I did decide to go away from the iron, railing that she was sitting on, because I thought that was a bit metallic. So we'll just put some, using the same colour but with more water. You can get some leaves just popped in, and then once they're in, we could then put veins in them if we wanted to. And we can put in some flowers. If we like, we could have pink flowers, couldn't we? Could have pink flowers. all over the place. Actually, that is what was outside. Definitely, that was what was outside the window. So I think we should try to put in some pink flowers here and there, and these ones can just be blobbity blob blobs. And we'll put a couple more up here. Maybe a few here. Here, perhaps. And then you can definitely come in from the top with a bit more. We don't really want this big gap here. We could pick up a little bit more blue. Perhaps not quite that much. Smoosh it out a bit. Some nice dark, runny doodles there. And then we can just add a little bit more over here as well. In the distance, a bit more blue, a bit more orange, make it darker. Okay. We could bring these up yet nearer to the bird, but paler if they're in the distance. Make it nice and busy, you know. And then perhaps we'll increase the blueness of her a little bit, perhaps. I'm wondering whether to add some white. I don't much like that. Let's try this one. Go around that eye again, make it a bit whiter. Perhaps. Now this is obviously completely different from the sort of do-it-yourself Build-A-Bird idea, but the idea is that you practice putting the pieces together and then you do a complete bird with wings and head and all the rest of it, and you embellish it with whatever comes to mind. If your bird looks like she's wearing a suit of armour, so well and good. Obviously, she needed to be armoured against the day. And so that's pretty much that. And I want to put a little bit of, what do I want to put in the middle of those flowers? The orange, I think, probably. You could go for yellow, but I think that would probably be too much of a contrast. Okay, and you could mix up some darker green, sage green, with that rusty brown and the blue, both of which are from the Kuretake Art Nouveau set. And we could put in a few more darker things, like some veins in the middle of some of these leaves could have veins in them. And that just gives it a little bit more depth and realism, so to speak. But we put some dark over here too. Doesn't have to be anything, it can just be dots and dashes. Okay, just something a little bit darker here and there. So maybe up here. Oops, that wasn't meant to happen. Doesn't matter. Right then, so I think that's probably it. That is our bird for today. I don't know what her name is, but she's jolly pretty. She is Mrs. Laughing Dove from Egypt. So there we are. That's today's painting. Hope you enjoyed that. Look forward to next time and give it a try. You never know what you might create. You can always be surprised. Okay, I'll let you go. Bye for now, everybody. Bye-bye. I was going to paint her.
She says, I know you see me. Is it okay if I stand here and preen myself? It's okay. I'm not trying to steal your soul with the camera, I promise.
There's some bread on the other balcony.
Yeah, you can fly over here and have some bread.